43-year-old African-American male was being wheeled in by his wife. When you look at him, he's a very strong-looking 43-year-old young man. So I walk up to him and said, "How come you're in a wheelchair?" He said, "I had a stroke." I said, "What? How did you end up having a stroke?" He said, "I was in the hospital and they said I had a bleed in my head." So my question to him was, if you had a bleed in your head, how high was your blood pressure when you got into the hospital? He said, "My blood pressure was 250 over 150. That's really high. Normal blood pressure is 120 or 80. So I said, "Okay, one question. What did you have in the 24 hours before you went to the hospital?" He said, "Hot dog and gumbo." What did it do to him? The salt got into the system, raised his blood pressure to 250 or 150, and even though he was physically very strong, when his blood pressure went up that high, these little tubes in the brain can't take that pressure, they burst. When they burst, you bleed in your brain, and here he is now stuck in a wheelchair for the next 40 years because his genetics are not going to let him die prematurely, but he's crippled in a wheelchair for the next 40 years because of, as you said, hot dog and gumbo.
So is there anything that he did or could have changed that would have made him less susceptible?
Yes.
Because if it's something that he's eaten all along, I think somebody would sit there and say, you know, I've been eating this all my life. Why did it hurt me now?
Correct. And a lot of times, how many of us actually check our blood pressure? Even I don't check my blood pressure unless I force myself to check it. That means you could be doing this and noticing that your blood pressure is high, but you will not have any symptoms. People walk around with a blood pressure 210, 220 for years, never having symptoms. So you may not know if your blood pressure is high or not. So you could be doing all these things and have high blood pressure and never know it until you go to a doctor's office who does an EKG and says, "Hey, wait a minute, your EKG shows your heart muscle is thick. Your ultrasound shows your heart is dilating and your heart muscle is thick, and your blood pressure is really high. What's going on?" At that point, you pick it up. But then the question comes back is, what is the cause? Usually, most of us, as we age, we develop sensitivity to salt. But it's more common in African Americans, for whatever reason, they tend to develop salt sensitivity much more earlier than every other race. But every one of us develops salt sensitivity. So the day you develop sensitivity to salt, you can come in contact with hot dog and gumbo, then your blood pressure is going to shoot up. So what is a simple treatment for that? My treatment is this. Every one of us, when we get up in the morning, drink 2 glasses of water, non-negotiable. You roll out of bed, don't worry about brushing your teeth, drink 2 big glasses of water, and if you want, get back into bed. Why? It helps you recalibrate your system and makes your mind wake up, brain starts functioning normally. Second, simple rule. Every time you sit down to eat, simple rule, drink 2 glasses of water. Why? Half your stomach should be full of water. So when you start eating, let's say it's hot dog and gumbo. So what? I eat hot dog and gumbo too. But my stomach is half full with water, and as I'm eating, the hot dog and gumbo lands in the water. The water now sucks the salt out, and I'm able to pee it out in the next half an hour to 45 minutes. Well, if I eat hot dog and gumbo in the absence of water, now I'm going to retain water, and it's going to raise my blood pressure. Give you another example. 3 weeks ago, I broke my own rule. I had a couple of scotches because a couple of friends had come over and had some salty food. Ate it, did not follow my rule of drinking water immediately before and during as I'm eating. Guess what happened? I woke up in the morning, this happens to be Sunday, so I didn't have to go to work. I'm lightheaded, dizzy, nauseated, head is throbbing. So I was thinking it's the scotch, but it was not the scotch. So I get up and I go and check my weight. When I check my weight, I weigh 160 pounds. My weight went up to 169 pounds. Now I look at myself, my face is bloated, my fingers are bloated, my feet are bloated, and I said, and I'm a little short of breath, and I'm not able to pass any urine. Now I go down to the kitchen and start drinking water. I drink to the point I can't drink anymore. After a couple of hours, I check my weight again, still no urine. My weight has gone to 174 pounds. Now remember, I have 14 pounds of water weight on me. I'm really scared and concerned. You know why? When I have so much water on me, what if my heart dilates and my valve starts to leak? Within 5 minutes, I will end up in congestive heart failure. That means fluid in my lungs. I got into bed, did not move, just stayed there, and at 3 o'clock, I started passing urine. And all night long, I passed urine. I said, I'm never going to make this mistake again, because it could have meant that 1 more pound could have put me in heart failure and I would be in the hospital. So the point is simple. Salt is easily available. Everything we eat is loaded with salt, but please be careful. All you have to do is drink water before you eat, and halfway through, drink more water, and if you're eating salty food, drink more water. What happens? You will flush the salt out, and you will not gain weight. You will not even gain an ounce 12 hours later. You will not have shortness of breath. You will not have bloating, and your blood pressure will not go up. It's that simple. So, Should you be eating salt? Yes or no? The answer is absolutely yes. Should you add salt to your liking to make the food more tasty? Yes. Remember, the more salt you add, the tastier the food gets. And if you choose to eat a lot of food, what is the one thing you need to add? More salt. But should you ever be scared of salt? Never. As long as you do what? Fill half of your stomach with water before you start eating. That means by the time the first morsel of food enters your stomach, it should land in water in the stomach. Why? It's simple. What is salt? Whenever you put salt in the stomach, what does it do? Osmosis. What is osmosis? Wherever the salt concentration is high, the low concentration water gets into the salt area. That means what? When you put salt in your stomach, water from the body gets dumped into the stomach, and now there may be a point that even when you eat one burger or one hot dog, you probably could be pumping close to 2 liters of fluid from your body into the stomach. Now remember, when you lose 2 liters of fluid from your body into the stomach, it could be like somebody's bleeding you, and let's say somebody's bleeding you and you lose 2 liters of blood. What happens? Your blood pressure initially drops, but you become lightheaded, dizzy, you have a mental fog, and you become very thirsty. Well, the same things happen. Now remember, when you have 2 liters of fluid in your stomach is bloated, and you try to drink water. Can you drink a lot of water? No. In the meantime, what happens to the kidneys? They shut down. When you shut down the kidneys, what happens? You're releasing hormones which in turn do what? Increase your thirst, raise your heart rate, raise your blood pressure, and put you in a setup for what? Causing you to retain more water. And how long does this happen? For 48 hours. So you start the process and it takes you 48 hours before you get out of it. That is the reason why when people splurge on salt, they come back and tell me their blood pressure is high. It was well controlled on medications. Remember, if your blood pressure is well controlled on medications with 120, 130 systolic, you eat a salty meal, and if you're sensitive to salt, your blood pressure technically can go up by 100 points in spite of being on medications. That's precisely what I see after every major holiday: Memorial Day, Labor Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas. It is consistently the same case scenario where people eat something salty, blood pressure shoots up, and it stays up for almost 24 to 48 or even 72 hours. And quite a few of them go to the hospital, get some clonidine, come home, stop the cloning, blood pressure shoots up again, and it's usually after 72 hours that it starts to drop again. So if you want to avoid all this problem, what is the one thing you need to do? Simplify it. The first thing you need to do is, when you roll out of bed, drink 2 glasses of water. Every time you sit down to eat, start drinking 2 glasses of water, and after that only then start eating. If you find the food to be salty, halfway through stop and ask a simple question, yes or no. If the food is salty, drink 2 more glasses of water. Now the question comes back is, does this happen to everyone? Not to everyone. Why? It usually happens more often in people who become sensitive to salt. The next question you should ask is, how does a person become sensitive to salt? Just because of eating a lot of salt? No. I can eat a lot of salt and still never become sensitive to salt. What makes me develop sensitive to salt? Sugar. How? We will discuss that next time.